The Lives of the Saints by Father Alban Butler, March 20th. Blessed Ambrose Sansedoni of Siena. On this day, Siena venerates the memory of one of its most notable sons, Ambrose Sansedoni. His parents belonged to two distinguished Sienese families, and his father, nicknamed for his courage Buonataco, was the first to defend Christianity against the Moors. The child had been born with an abnormally large head, and apparently without the use of his arms and legs. One day, when his ayah took him to the Dominican Church of St. Mary Magdalene, he was seen to stir, and after being taken out of the linen in which he was wrapped like a bambino of Della Robbia, they noticed that his limbs were as vigorous as those of any other normal boy. His biographers give many examples of his exquisite piety, and as he grew older, he developed a great devotion to the sick and the poor, visiting the hospital every Saturday and the prison every Friday. At the age of 17, Ambrose decided to enter the order of preachers. His superiors soon recognized his ability and sent him to Cologne, where he had St. Albert the Great as his teacher and St. Thomas Aquinas as a fellow disciple. Such an intelligent pupil could not but progress under such a master, and before long he was besieged in his cell by students who came to him for consultation. This fame displeased him, and he begged his superiors to allow him to retire to solitude. Having obtained consent, he withdrew from public life, but not for long. Influential people asked the Dominicans to call him and set him to preach. For 3 years he taught theology in Paris, where crowds of students flocked to his classes. He was sent to preach in Germany, France, and Italy, and it is said that his sermons seemed inspired. Sinners were converted, and enemies settled their differences amicably. Some of his listeners declare that while he was standing in the pulpit, they had seen the Holy Spirit descending on his head in the form of a dove. Like many other Italian saints, men and women, the eloquent friar did not limit his energies to spiritual exhortations, but was called upon to take part in important public affairs. With persuasive words, he tried to reconcile the prince-electors who, in their private sectors, were on the eve of provoking a civil war. He stopped a new heresy in Bohemia that was causing singular disorder, and when the Pope, Blessed Gregory X, commissioned him to preach the Crusade, he obtained a generous response to his appeals. Twice he reconciled with the Holy See the people of Siena, who, having sided with Manfredo, the bastard son of Frederick VII, had been declared in interdict. Several writers state that when Ambrose entered the consistory to intercede for his fellow citizens, his face was illuminated with supernatural light, and the Pope exclaimed, "Father Ambrose, you need not explain your mission. I grant you what you desire." Despite all the important missions that had been entrusted to him and the success that crowned his efforts, Ambrose always remained singularly humble. The Pope wished to make him a bishop, but he could never be persuaded to accept, although he held the office of Master of the Sacred Palace. After Gregory's death, he sought retirement in one of the houses of his order. There he often swept the church, the dormitories, the cloisters, and never gave more than 4 hours to sleep. After matins, he prayed for 2 hours in the choir and studied the rest of the night until cousinship. During the 45 years of her religious life, she did not eat meat once, without an order to that effect, and on Fridays she drank only bread and water. She never stopped preaching, despite her advanced age, and her sermons lost none of their fire and eloquence. At the beginning of Lent, 1286, preaching one day against usury, he spoke with such vehemence that he burst a vein. The next day the hemorrhage contained. He tried to continue his sermon, but the malady returned. Evidently his days were numbered. He died at the age of 66. The cult that had been paid to him in Siena since his death was confirmed in 1622.